Welcome to Timeless Tales, where stories from history, myth, and the natural world come alive. In today's episode, we step into the world of our closest animal relatives, guided by two insightful voices. Meet Maya Sinclair, an inquisitive mind with a passion for storytelling and a background in anthropology. Maya asks the questions we're all thinking, and a few we hadn't considered. She's joined by Dr. Leo Hartman, a calm and seasoned primatologist whose deep knowledge brings clarity to even the wildest of behaviors. Together, they explore the social dynamics of our primate cousins and chimpanzee politics, power and sex among apes.
Welcome to Timeless Tales.
Hi there.
Today you're joining us for a really fascinating exploration into the complex social lives of chimpanzees.
Absolutely. We're diving deep into the world documented in Frans de Waal's insightful book, Chimpanzee Politics.
Exactly. Think of this as your personal backstage pass to understanding the power struggles, the surprising alliances, and, the intricate behaviors within a specific captive chimp colony.
And we'll be focusing on specific events and individuals trying to bring their stories to life.
Yeah, give you a really vivid picture.
So the first thing that strikes you, I think, reading the book is the setting itself.
Arnhem Zoo, right, in the Netherlands.
That's the one. And it wasn't just any old ape enclosure.
No, definitely not. There was a real emphasis on creating an environment that would allow for the most natural behaviors to emerge, wasn't there?
Absolutely. Forget those cramped, sterile cages you might imagine. This was different.
It was large, open air.
Yeah, with natural elements, like oak trees, both living and dead ones.
Which sounds maybe a bit odd, the dead trees. But they were actually crucial, weren't they?
They were, as escape routes during conflicts, little safe zones.
Right. It makes you wonder, what difference did this more sort of naturalistic setup really make?
Well, generally, the closer the environment is to the wild, the more authentic the behaviors you're going to see.
Makes sense.
And the zoo director then, Anton van Hoof, he really believed in this idea.
Yeah.
Housing fewer species, rather than lots poorly.
A good philosophy.
And crucially, they minimized human interaction. No direct feeding or provoking the apes.
So visitors could only watch.
Exactly. Providing this unique, unfiltered glimpse into their world. It opened back in August 1971.
It sounds like a real commitment to understanding them on their own terms.
We think so.
And it certainly led to some memorable events, didn't it? I mean, the book talks about this incredible escape early on.
Oh, yeah. That's quite a story. Shortly after it opened,
They got out. How?
they used branches, like ladders, to scale a 4-meter wall. Amazing ingenuity, really.
Wow. And the story about raiding the restaurant.
Well, the book clarifies that the fruit part was probably a bit embellished.
Ah, okay. But the escape itself definitely happened.
Oh, absolutely. And the best part, for me anyway.
What Mama did.
Yes. The oldest female, Mama, became a bit of a legend that day.
Went right over the counter, didn't you?
Yep. Checked out the cash register,
Serious?
apparently. And then just calmly sat down among the visitors and drank a bottle of chocolate.
You couldn't make it up. It really shows their individual personalities, doesn't it?
Exactly. You start to see them as complex beings, not just data points.
Okay, so we have this amazing setting designed for natural behavior, which ironically leads to some pretty unnatural encounters for the visitors.
True.
Now let's turn to the key players. The book introduces this, fascinating cast of characters.
By 1979, the colony had 23 members. But the book really focuses on 7 influential individuals whose interactions drive the whole story.
3 females and 4 males.
That's right. The females were Mama, Gorilla, and Farge.
And the males.
Jeroen, Louet, Nikki, and Dandy.
Okay, let's start with Mama. We've heard a bit already. She sounds like a real powerhouse.
Definitely. Estimated around 40 in 1979, the oldest and initially the supreme leader over everyone.
Wow. Both males and females.
Both. Described as broad, strongly built, with this incredibly powerful gaze.
And she had male-like displays.
In her younger years, yes, including these really forceful kicks against metal doors. You could almost hear it.
But she mellowed later, became more protective.
Yeah, she became more relaxed, especially protective of her daughter, Monique. Like she shifted from enforcer to matriarch.
Interesting transition. Then there's Jeroen. He becomes the alpha male eventually.
He does. He arrived a bit later with Louet and Nikki.
And the dynamics shifted then.
Big time. After Mama was temporarily removed, along with Gorilla,
Yeah.
Jeroen seized the opportunity.
Took the top spot.
Yep. The book notes he could be harsh, but maybe his aggression wasn't quite as damaging generally as Mama's had sometimes been.
A different kind of order, perhaps.
Possibly.
And Louis, he sounds like quite a contrast to Yarrowen.
He's depicted as much more sociable, yeah. Open, friendly, gave this impression of reliability.
Sought out company.
Seen, too. And he was also known for impressive bluff displays, puffing himself up.
Trying to look bigger than he was.
Exactly. Made you wonder if his approachability helped him later when he challenged Yarrowen.
Right. Now, Nicky, his journey sounds like a real climb through the ranks.
It was. He joined younger, around age 10.
And had a big growth spurt.
Huge. Became much larger than Dandy. Also known for bluff displays, and yeah, eventually he rises right to the top.
Shows that status wasn't fixed.
Not at all. Very dynamic.
Okay, and Dandy. The slightly built one, the intellectual. That's intriguing.
Yeah, he was sort of the physical opposite of Nicky. Smaller, slenderer.
But clever.
Very. Had this sensitive, intelligent expression. Considered the smartest, known for his guile, even involved in those early escapes.
So he used intelligence over strength.
Absolutely. Compensated for his lack of physical power.
Yeah.
There's a great story about him figuring out how to trick a keeper for bananas.
Shows quick thinking. What about the other females? Gorilla.
Gorilla was known for being fond of the younger chimps, acted like an aunt.
A nurturing figure.
Yes, though she had difficulties raising her own offspring, which makes the experiment with her so remarkable.
The bottle feeding.
Yeah, they taught her to bottle feed an adopted baby, Rusi.
And she adopted her.
Fully. Even started producing milk for her, which is just extraordinary. Speaks volumes about her maternal side.
Amazing. And Franche. She sounds quite different.
Fichot was possibly elderly, poor health, bad teeth, described as timid, easily alarmed.
The first to raise a fuss.
Often the first to bark, yeah. But interestingly, the others often ignored her alarms, suggests she wasn't maybe central to the main social world.
Right, more in the periphery. Then there are Puist and Teppel. Puist is described as unlikable. That's a strong word.
It is, but it's based on observed behavior in the book. She had a reputation for being, well, a bit two-faced, even mean.
How so?
Often seen with the adult males, sometimes seemed to stir up trouble against other females, used deceitful tactics in fights, like pretending to reconcile then attacking.
Ooh, sneaky.
But complexity again, she also had a special bond with Teppel and her children, so not entirely straightforward.
Always nuances. And Teppel, the pioneer mother.
Yes, she was the first in the colony to successfully adopt an orphaned infant, Wouter.
That must have been significant.
It was. The book mentions her name comes from her strikingly large nipples. Her success showed parental care wasn't purely instinctive. Learning played a role. Paved the way for others.
These portraits really set the stage. So beyond the power stuff, what was typical day-to-day life like? It wasn't all fighting, was it?
Oh, not at all. Lots of natural social activity. Grooming was huge.
The bonding thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Frequent in relaxed clusters, you'd hear these soft spluttering and smacking sounds. Very important for reinforcing connections, reducing tension.
You can almost picture it. And the youngsters.
Play, lots of play. Chasing games, and often disturbing the adults who were trying to groom.
Annoying the grown-ups.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Jumping on them, grabbing at them playfully. Different priorities, you know.
Huh. Communication must have been key in all this. How did they manage it?
It was really multifaceted. A whole range of vocalization.
Like screams and...
Screams for fear or protest, yelps for disappointment, barks, grunts, whimpers, hoots, each meaning something in context.
And non-vocal signals, too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Individual signals developed.
Yeah.
The book mentions Dandy's specific grooming invitation gesture.
Oh, cool.
And Mama's very clear, no headshake. Shows real nuance, even without words.
We hear about bluff displays a lot. What does that actually look like? What's the point?
It's all about intimidation. Making yourself look bigger and more threatening than you maybe are.
How?
Puffing up their hair, hooting loudly, swaying back and forth, sometimes using objects like stones or sticks.
To make more noise or look scarier.
Yeah. But interestingly, females could sometimes just walk up and confiscate those objects from displaying males without getting attacked.
Really? What does that suggest?
Maybe a kind of understanding that it is partly bluff, or maybe just the females asserting their own standing subtly.
Fascinating. So displays weren't always backed by force. What happened when things did get tense? Where did they go for safety?
Seeking refuge was natural. Youngsters ran to their mothers, obviously.
And adults.
Adults, particularly females, might move closer to a dominant male. His presence could deter aggressors. Shows how important those social bonds were for security.
The book talks a lot about coalitions. What does that mean here?
Alliances, basically. Two or more teaming up against another.
Strategic, not just random ganging up.
The book emphasizes it's often strategic. Individuals choose sides based on kinship, maybe potential benefits. It's like, well, politics.
Chimpanzee politics ends the title. What about side-directed behavior? Sounds subtle.
It is. It's communication aimed at a third party during an interaction between two others. Imagine two chimps are tense. One might briefly touch a nearby dominant individual, not to involve them directly, but maybe signaling for backup or just seeking reassurance, influencing things indirectly.
Clever. And signal suppression, especially around mating, avoiding the alpha's attention.
Exactly. Lower-ranking males trying to mate without the alpha noticing, because he'd usually monopolize opportunities.
How would they hide it?
Subtle glances, nudges to arrange things secretly, even concealing signs of arousal if the dominant male showed up suddenly.
Like changing posture.
Yeah, or suddenly getting very interested in grooming. There's a funny bit about Dandy quickly covering his erection when Louis appeared unexpectedly.
Huh. Shows awareness of the rules and consequences.
Definitely. Awareness of the social hierarchy.
It paints such a vivid, complex picture. Okay, let's dive into the core theme. The leadership changes, alliances, attacks. Sounds like a thriller.
It really reads like one sometimes. So early on, Mama was dominant over everyone.
We established that. But then the males arrived in 73, Euro and Louis, Nikki.
Yes, and that was the turning point. It started to shift the power balance.
Leading eventually to Mama being dethroned, the book hints researchers maybe influenced that shift a bit, wanting a more typical male-led group.
Well, after Mama and Gorilla were temporarily removed, Euroan did take over. The book discusses the ethics, acknowledges the intervention,
What was the reasoning?
partly to see a structure closer to wild chimps, which tend to be male-dominated. Also, maybe to reduce injuries, Mama's regime had apparently led to quite a few.
Okay, so Euron took charge. But his reign wasn't unchallenged for long. Louis stepped up.
That's right. By spring 76, Louis began challenging Euron openly.
How did that start? What was the signal?
A key signal was Louis stopping the submissive greeting behavior towards Euron. A clear statement of intent.
And then confrontations, displays, attacks.
Yeah, a period of real tension. Temporary alliances forming and dissolving. Louis did this really bold thing.
Mating near Euron.
Exactly. Mating with a female called Spin, right near Euron. A huge act of defiance, given Euron's usual intolerance for that.
Wow. Direct challenge. And Nikki, what was his role in this Louis-Euron conflict? He was pivotal later, we know.
Absolutely. He formed what the book calls an open coalition with Louis.
Meaning?
They often acted independently, but their actions consistently undermined Euron. Nikki attacking females, for example.
Testing Euron's ability to protect them.
Possibly. Testing his authority. And if Euron didn't respond forcefully, it might have looked like weakness to both Louis and Nikki. Emboldened them.
Euron became more isolated during this time, didn't he? Social support mattered.
Hugely important. By autumn 76, Louis had gained influence over many females. Euron lost that network.
Leaving him vulnerable.
Exactly. Social standing was as critical as strength.
And after lots of fights, including that bizarre one where they both ended up in an electrified tree,
Yeah, quite an image.
Louis eventually won dominance over Euron, but not just strength, right? It was social too.
That's a key point in the book. Louis was strong, yes, but his success suggests he'd also managed to build more group support. Leadership transitions involved social maneuvering, alliances, political savvy.
But the Louis-Nikki coalition, the one that beat Euron, it didn't last.
No, power dynamics are always shifting. That alliance became unstable, turned on itself.
Nikki started challenging Louis, even though he was initially lower ranked.
He did. And interestingly, the book suggests Euron, now deposed, subtly supported Nikki's rise.
Seeing a chance to regain influence, playing the long game.
Perhaps politics.
The book mentions Euron mounting Nikki during displays. What did that signify? It's not sexual in this context.
No, not sexual here. It was a powerful public display of their alliance.
A signal to Louis.
And everyone else.
Oh.
Showing unity, combined strength. Very symbolic.
Then there was that really violent clash where Nikki and Euron cornered Louis in a tree.
A very intense, brutal moment. Fighting involved.
But the females intervened, turned on Euron.
Some high-ranking females did, briefly. Shows the fluidity again, and that females still held significant influence, even in these male power struggles.
Nikki wasn't always purely strategic, though. The incident with the baby chimp, Wooter, he got removed for that.
Right, his behavior could be impulsive. Grabbing young Wooter during a display was seen as too risky, a dangerous escalation.
So the zoo staff stepped in.
Yes, removed him for the winter of 77-78.
When he came back, Lewitt attacked him initially.
He did. But then a surprise defender emerged.
Gorilla.
Yes. Gorilla, who had apparently formed a bond with Nicky, stepped in and protected him, chased off others. Shows these complex individual relationships.
Amazing. And by summer 78, the power shifted again. Eurowin submitted to Nicky.
Yep. End of July 78, Eurowin's submission was clear, solidified a new and actually long-lasting coalition between them. Nicky was now top dog in that pair.
With Lewitt still trying to challenge them.
Yeah, and his challenges often forced Nicky and Eurowin to quickly patch up any minor disagreements they had to keep that united front.
So by 1980, Nicky was the clear alpha.
He was. The book states he was mating significantly more often than Lewitt and Eurowin combined. Marked the culmination of his climb. A new era for the colony.
The main story ends around 79, but there's an epilogue, right? What happened later to Lewitt, Nicky, Eurowin?
Yeah, the epilogue mentions a dramatic event in 1980, a fierce attack on Nicky.
By who?
By Puist. Remember her?
The unlikable one, who sometimes sided with males.
Exactly. Right after Nicky and Eurowin were reintroduced after a separation, Puist went for Nicky. Really persistent, held him trapped in a tree for at least 10 minutes.
Wow. Even after Nicky was alpha, shows things were still tense.
Definitely. Power was still contested, challenges came from unexpected places.
And Dandy, the clever one, he became more prominent after this.
He did. Started playing a more intriguing role. Repeatedly sought contact with Eurowin, resisted Nicky's attempts to separate them.
Hinting at new, maybe more subtle alliances forming.
Suggests that, yeah. The political maneuvering never really stopped.
And the colony continued to evolve, new generations.
Yes, thriving. And the book notes, fascinating, echoes new chimps, showing behaviors reminiscent of the older characters.
Like history repeating.
A bit. A new power dynamic eventually emerged. Dandy, Nicky, and Eurowin forming a kind of triangle. Reminded the author of older males in the wild, strategically manipulating younger rivals. Full circle.
Constantly shifting, adapting. So let's reflect a bit. Stepping back from the day-to-day drama, what are the big takeaways here?
Well, I think the sheer complexity is the main thing. It just shatters any simplistic ideas about animal behavior.
Right. Power, strategy, alliances, even reconciliation.
Exactly. It forces you to really think about how sophisticated their relationships are.
And the parallels with human society, politics, they're hard to ignore, aren't they?
Very striking. The book's title nails it. It makes you wonder about the roots of our own behaviors, power, alliances, maybe even deception. Are they uniquely human? Maybe not entirely.
The way the hierarchy wasn't fixed is also key. People rose and fell based on more than just strength.
For sure. The book calls the structure flexible, plastic. Dominance was constantly negotiated, redefined through social interactions. It's a dynamic system.
So ultimately, what does it tell us about chimp intelligence? It's clearly way beyond basic instinct.
Oh, absolutely. It highlights how crucial individual recognition, communication, even reciprocity are for holding the group together despite all the competition.
Forming coalitions, manipulating situations.
Yeah, that points to a level of social intelligence that's, well, really impressive. They're navigating a very complex social world, highly intelligent beings.
It's a truly captivating glimpse into their world, and as you say, it holds up a mirror to our own in some pretty thought-provoking ways. The story of the Arnhem chimpanzees, it really shows these intricate social interactions, reminding us that chasing power, forming alliances, it's not just a human thing. The fates of Louis, Nicky, and Eurowin, the constant shifts, it's a rich tapestry that's still fascinating.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning into Timeless Tales. Until next time, stay curious.
And that concludes today's journey into the shadowy world of chimpanzee politics. Where grooming is power, silence is strategy, and every glance carries weight. It's a world that mirrors our own more than we'd like to admit. Power isn't always about who's the loudest or strongest. Sometimes, it's about who knows when to sit, listen, and groom. If you found yourself thinking of boardrooms, elections, or even your own social circles, well, that's no coincidence. These lessons from the forest remind us that the roots of human behavior run deeper than history, they stretch into evolution itself. Thanks for joining us on Timeless Tales. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with someone who thinks politics is just a human invention. And for those curious to dive deeper, I've attached a free PDF with more insights from Chimpanzee Politics by Frans de Waal. You'll find it linked in the show notes or video description. Until next time, I'm reminding you that every age has its echoes, and every tale, its timeless truth.